Foreign Minister Kuleba, Dmytro, welcome to NATO. It's always a great pleasure to welcome you here. And let me start by expressing how much we admire your courage, your leadership, you personally, but also the government of Ukraine, the people of Ukraine, and of course the bravery and the courage of Ukrainian armed forces. What you do every day, standing up against the Russian aggression, is something that inspires the whole world. And as you know, NATO allies have provided support for Ukraine for many years, trained tens of thousands of Ukrainian troops, and now allies are providing equipment, support to you to uphold your right for self-defense, a right which is enshrined in the UN Charter. And it is an urgent need to further support Ukraine. And at our meeting later on with the NATO foreign ministers, I'm certain that we will address the need for more air defense systems, anti-tank weapons, lighter but also heavier weapons, and many different types of support to Ukraine. NATO also has responsibility to, of course, protect and defend all allies. So we have, since the invasion of Ukraine, stepped our military presence in the eastern part of the alliance. And we are making sure that there is no room for misunderstanding, miscalculation in Moscow about our readiness to protect and defend all allies. You being here provides us with a very good opportunity to sit down with you, to listen to your assessments, your analysis, and together discuss the way forward, how we can further support Ukraine. So, Dmytro, please welcome. It's good to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you, Jens, for welcoming me. I came to Brussels to participate in the NATO ministerial and to hold bilateral meetings with allies. My agenda is very simple. It has only 3 items on it. It's weapons, weapons, and weapons. We are confident that the best way to help Ukraine now is to provide it with all necessary to contain Putin and to defeat Russian army in Ukraine, in the territory of Ukraine, so that the war does not spill over further. In the recent weeks, Ukrainian army and the entire Ukrainian nation has demonstrated that we know how to fight, we know how to win, but without sustainable and sufficient supplies of all weapons requested by Ukraine, these wins will be accompanied with enormous sacrifices. The more weapons we get, and the sooner they arrive in Ukraine, the more human lives will be saved, the more cities and villages will not be destructed, and there will be no more butchers. This is my message to the allies. It's very simple. And I call on all allies to put aside their hesitations, their reluctance, to provide Ukraine with everything it needs. Because, as weird as it may sound, but today weapons serve the purpose of peace. Thank you.
Secretary General, are you ready, or are allies ready to send more offensive weapons to Ukraine? And one question to the minister. Do you think that Germany is doing enough?
Allies are sending many different types of weapons, and I think also we need to realize that allies have supported Ukraine for many years, and these weapons, the support we have provided, is proving its importance on the battleground every day. We can see all the Russian armor that has been destroyed. We have seen Russian planes being shot down. And of course, this is first and foremost because of the bravery, the commitment, and the courage of the Ukrainian armed forces. But the equipment that has been supplied is, of course, also of vital importance. I have urged allies to provide further support of many different types of systems, both light weapons but also heavier weapons. It is, as Foreign Minister Kuleba states, Ukraine needs weapons to defend its own country. And this is actually defensive, self-defense, also, of course, with advanced weapon systems. So I expect this to be one important issue at the meeting today.
When it comes to Ukraine, there should be no such difference as between defensive weapons and offensive weapons, because every weapon used in the territory of Ukraine by the Ukrainian army against a foreign aggressor is defensive by definition. So this distinction between defensive and offensive doesn't make any sense when it comes to the situation in my country. And those countries who are saying we will provide Ukraine with defensive weapons, but we are not in a position to provide them with offensive weapons, they are hypocritical. This is simply unfair, unjustified approach. Germany, as you perfectly know, has made a revolutionary step in changing its position from not agreeing to supply any weapons at all to allowing certain supplies and providing Ukraine in particular with anti-tank weapons. However, it's clear that Germany can do more given its reserves and capacity, and we are working with the German government on providing us with additional weapons. The issue that concerns me the most is the length of procedures and decision-making in Berlin, because while Berlin has time, Kiev doesn't.
Minister, what do you think about the most recent sanctions proposals?
Well, I hope they will be applied in full. This is definitely a step forward. A week ago, the sanctions proposals were much weaker, to say the least. We were very unhappy about it. We were working with partners in G7 and in the European Union to ensure that sanction pressure is stepped up. We succeeded, but I cannot say that we succeeded 100%. We will continue to insist on full oil and gas embargo for Russia, on de-SWIFTing all Russian banks, on making sure that all ports are closed for Russian vessels and Russian goods with the minimal number of exemptions from it based on humanitarian grounds. And frankly speaking, I hope we will never face a situation again when, to step up the sanctions pressure, we need atrocities like at Bucha to be revealed and to impress and to shock other partners to the extent that they sit down and say, okay, fine, we will introduce new sanctions. I don't believe that Ukrainians have to pay with their lives, health and sufferings for the political will of partners to impose sanctions.
Philip Loke from Norwegian Broadcasting. Minister, what kind of weapons exactly do you need? Is it planes, long-ranging missiles? What exactly are you asking for?
Planes, shore-to-vessel missiles, personal armored vehicles, heavy air defense systems.
Foreign Minister, if I could ask you, Nick Beak from the BBC. You say weapons, weapons, weapons are your priorities today. For you, on a personal note, how difficult will it be when some of the NATO allies tell you that they can't give you some weapons because they don't want to plunge the West into a wider war with Russia? And just a word on the support Britain is giving your country. And Secretary General, can you just remind us what has changed in the last few days in light of the horrors we've seen? And do you think partners in NATO, their minds will be changed today from what you hear from the Minister?
Yes, there are two ways of approaching the issue of weapons supplies. The first one is when you do not want to supply anything. You come up with the argument, we don't have to do it because it will pull us or NATO as a whole into the war. The second approach is completely different. This line of thinking is completely different. We will provide Ukraine with all necessary weapons so that neither we nor NATO as a whole will have to fight in this war, because Ukrainians will do it for us. I think the deal that Ukraine is offering is fair. You give us weapons, we sacrifice our lives, and the war is contained in Ukraine. This is it. The United Kingdom has been at the forefront of providing Ukraine with all necessary assistance, and we deeply appreciate that help.
I think fundamentally what we have seen over the last days is the brutality of this war, and that has just highlighted the importance of support to Ukraine. And therefore I think it is important that we have Minister Kuleba here today to meet all NATO allies and to discuss how we can further support Ukraine. NATO allies are providing many different types of weapons, also heavier systems, advanced systems, and also systems that can shoot down planes and of course attack Russian armor. And it is exactly as Minister Kuleba said, that Ukraine is fighting in the defensive war. So this distinction between offensive and defensive weapons doesn't actually have any real meaning in a defensive war as Ukraine is fighting. What we also have seen is, of course, that we need both the support with weapons, but also to step up sanctions, and therefore I also welcome the fact that NATO allies are now in the process of stepping up further sanctions on Russia. NATO provides support to Ukraine, but NATO is not sending troops to be on the ground. And we also have a responsibility to prevent this conflict from escalating beyond Ukraine and become even more deadly, even more dangerous and destructive. So we are providing support, but at the same time working hard to prevent escalation of the conflict.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.